Today on Steampunk Minecraft, the storage vault. In the last episode, we spent all of our time making a gold factory, but you need a place to store that gold. We're gonna drill a giant hole into a mountainside and build a giant vault door. This is episode 13 of Steampunk Minecraft. You want to play mod packs with friends, but you can't seem to find a good server. And the free ones? With the big mod packs these days, free servers are just too laggy. Luckily for you, there's BISECT hosting. They host my server, and with plenty of affordable options, they can host your server too. And the best part is, they support almost every mod pack. Use code Doublesal at checkout for 25% off your first order. BISECT hosting, a great site for great servers. Today I'm going to work on a little vanity project in the sense that this build is going to accomplish absolutely nothing for this world. I'm just going to build it because it's cool to have. Now the first step to building a giant vault is of course drilling into the mountain, and we can't drill unless we fuel the power drill. With the drill powered up, I went back to the mountain and began breaking up a bunch of blocks, but there was a little problem. You see, this was a very big mountain, and sometimes I would have to reach really high up to break the blocks, and sometimes I couldn't reach that far. But there is a special tool that can extend your reach. This tool is called an extendo grip. Kind of a funny name, but it does exactly that. It extends your reach. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to craft one of these. I got some brass, smashed it down so that we could have the plates, and began collecting other materials. Once I had everything I needed, I placed the items into the mechanical crafter as that was the only way you could make one of these things. I really do need to speed up the mechanical crafter because this is actually a slightly sped up version. Anyways, with the extendo grip now crafted, it was finally time to get to work. Of course, I did have to test it first. I mean, you can't just create something new and not give it a try. All you have to do is put the tool in your offhand, and then you scroll through the hotbar like usual and it will hold on to any item you have. Naturally, I tested the pickaxe as it was the blocks that I wanted to reach far to break. And yeah, this thing definitely extended your reach. And bonus tip, if you don't want to lose any durability, make sure you have an air tank. And yes, of course, it worked with the wonderful power drill. Now we were breaking a ton of blocks and we could break them up and down, left to right. It didn't matter how far they were or what direction they were in, the extendo grip could reach all. Although, like I said before, the air tank will prevent the durability from going down, but you have to make sure that it's full of air. The next step was to make a giant round frame where the giant vault door was gonna go. Now, I didn't know how I wanted this to work. All I knew was that I wanted it to be a spiral door. You know, I think they're called iris doors. It's where the triangular blades open up. Now, this was gonna be a little tricky, and in the creative world, I went through many trials and errors, but I finally got it down. Once I had perfected the spiral design as well as the mechanics to get the door to open, all I had to do was save the schematic and transfer it over to the survival world. I took the preview of the door and tried to align it exactly with my granite frame that I had made earlier. With the preview perfectly aligned, all I had to do was set up the schematic cannon, and from there, it took care of the rest. With the frame done, I manually built the door on the inside. You can see the spiral there, and yeah, now I just had to get it to open. Now to do this, I was gonna need a special type of remote. Now I don't remember exactly what this was called, but it basically acts as a remote that sends a signal to other redstone components. The goal is to send a signal to the doors to have it open on its own, but I do have to link it with other redstone components. I had windmills for power, I had gear shifts to dictate how the doors were gonna open, and of course I had mechanical bearings to ensure that they could move at all. All I had to do was link each blade to the redstone control. And seeing as how they were really spread apart, it was a little dangerous, especially if I wasn't watching where I was going, because sometimes, well, I fall. There was a couple of, let's call them mishaps. You know, like I said before, it's usually good to test something before you use it for real. I went back, fixed the door, and well, take a look for yourself. I thought that the elevator was really cool, but this thing, it blows the elevator out of the water. The vault door, the round door, the iris door, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. It worked. All of the blades opened perfectly in sync, and they closed in sync as well. All of that happening with the simple push of a button from my trusty redstone controller. With the vault door complete, now I had to design the vault itself. This was going to involve way more digging. Thankfully, the power drill would come in handy. Now the door did stick out a little, so I had to build a roof connecting the mountain with the vault door. Once the roof was finally complete, The next step was to actually detail the interior of what was just a simple, massive cave. I wanted to go for something grand because this was going to be the place where we were going to store all of our riches. I had a couple of things in mind, but there was one thing I knew I had to have. Massive columns on both the left and right side, as well as a beautiful, ornate floor. Now, the big question, which project was I going to tackle first? Well, seeing as how the floor is right there, that seemed the most easy. I dug up the floor and began placing slabs, trying to figure out what kind of pattern I wanted to do. In the end, I settled for a simple checkered pattern made up of andesite slabs as well as stone slabs. You can always rely on a checkered pattern. It's simple, but it looks nice. Next, I wanted to add some illumination. I began constructing these fire bowls on the sides of the path. I know we're in a steampunk world, but for the vault, I was going for a more ancient look. You know, the kind of atmosphere you'd find in an Indiana Jones movie where he's walking through a lost temple. Old, but monumentally grand. Though I was faithful to the color palette of this world, and I used a lot of acacia logs. Okay, so I finished the main chamber, but now I wanted the actual loot chamber. You see, this was just a lobby. The real vault was going to be behind another set of massive doors. With the new room finally created, it was finally time to take in everything that I had constructed. A little self-evaluation. And yeah, everything was looking good. Now it was time to get back to the more technical side of things, making these massive doors work. These were not going to be spiral doors like the main one. They were just going to be regular doors, but they were going to be massive. I went to the andesite alloy factory to gather some materials for the next essential block, that block being a radial chassis. You see, this block was going to make it possible for the door to open and close. Once they were crafted, I went back to the vault and began installing the chassis. Next, I added glue to the sides because I was going to be building some pretty large doors and I wanted to move with the chassis when they rotated. Now, before I began building the doors, I did want to craft some red sand because I was going to make red sandstone. The reason I'm making red sandstone was because I was going to use them for light fixtures. There were some lights I wanted to put on the walls of the vault. Now, these lights weren't going to be anything special, but it was very dark inside of the vault, and well, it would be nice to have lights to prevent mobs from spawning. I wouldn't want to store my gold in a place where I know it'd be in danger of getting blown up by creepers. I duplicated the design 7 more times, and well, in my opinion, I think that's plenty of lights. It was finally time to build the doors, and surprise, surprise, I am using acacia logs again. And just like the iris store, I was once again going to be using the redstone links, windmill blocks, mechanical bearing, and the sequence gear shift. It took me a while to remember what it was called. Once everything was glued together, it was finally time for a test run, and like I said before, I don't want creepers blowing it up, but how about if I had 2 giant guardian creepers protecting my loot? Okay, so the vault is finally complete. We have 2 sets of giant doors that can adequately protect all of our loot. The only thing that's missing now is the loot. So it's time to make a trip to our gold factory where we're going to convert all of our gold nuggets into gold ingots. And then we're going to turn those gold ingots into gold blocks. Now, what are we going to do with those gold blocks? Well, you'll see. The next few things are going to seem a little wasteful, but like I said before, this is a vanity project. So let's have some fun with it. First off, we're going to use these gold blocks to fill up this room. And I'm talking a giant mound of gold, maybe 2. Of course, this gold doesn't look nice unless it has light bouncing off of it, so of course I have to add fire as well. But gold blocks, that isn't enough. While brainstorming what to add, I came across our old throne and the giant gold boiler behind it. The block looked cool, so why not have more? That's right. I'm going to be converting some of these gold blocks into these massive boilers. Now, the boilers are actually used for trains, but they look like giant gold coins. On top of that, I had to craft some clay blocks and bake them because I was going to be making pottery. Now, why was I going to need pottery? Well, it turns out that if you combine the different pots, and they do come in all shapes and sizes, if you combine them with gold blocks, then they become gold pottery. Just the thing we need. I went back and added the pots as well as the boilers, trying to figure out which was the best possible way to place them. And you may also notice that I've added some little hints of emerald block in there. I didn't add much because, well, I didn't have that many emeralds to begin with, but I like the way they popped out. And of course, last but not least, since this is a treasury room, it at least deserves a nice floor. And once again, I am reverting to the good old checkered pattern. The room was almost done, but the walls were a little lacking, so I added some small details just so that there was a little depth. That way they didn't look so plain. There it is, the finished product. The treasury was done, the vault doors were done, the creepers were guarding all of our loot. It all came together perfectly. I don't know about you guys, but this was a fun little project to take on, and these doors, they were impenetrable. Nothing could get... What is that? Who is that? Somehow, it looked like someone got past my security. I opened the doors, and they are really slow at opening, but it looks so cool, so I can overlook it. And thankfully, there was nobody in there. Guessing that the guy was above the ground or beneath our feet. Well, that was a shorter video, but we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you want this design, be sure to support me on Patreon, where the schematic will be there for download. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing for more content. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Doublesal. I'll see you next time.